Hello and welcome to the cellar. For those who don't know, I've been renovating my medieval cellar for 8 years now in the middle of France. I started digging out all of the earth and dirt that was there for hundreds of years. I've made some discovery along the way, got to the rock bottom of the cellar. I then designed a new floor that I had made. And for 4 years, I worked on the masonry, repointing all of the walls and doing different projects here and there to repair the cellar. Last year, I was finally done with the walls. I started working on the electrical installation. I worked on the water also. I painted the floor. And I installed a nice lighting system which is partly automated. I went a bit overboard with it, but it's okay. And lastly, I installed 2 dehumidifiers to help me get control of the humidity in the cellar. And now I am finally ready to turn this space into a workshop, which was the goal like 8 years ago. So this is the start of a new series, which should be way shorter than the last one. This will be titled Nice Workshop. Why a nice workshop, not a dream workshop? Because I don't want to spend too much time on it. And dreams are just that, dreams. So it will be a nice workshop. I don't want to get a hodgepodge of reuse stuff. I still want to build something bespoke because I spent so much time renovating it. I want something nice. And also, I have a lot of constraints coming from the space. So I think that building everything custom makes sense. I thought it would be a good idea to start from a limited library of materials. So I will be working with square tubing, 30 by 30 by 3 millimeter wall thickness, and angle irons, 25 by 25, also the same wall thickness, and OSB as the main wood surface. I chose OSB because it's the cheapest. Also for its ability to resist humidity, which will be a plus in the cellar. I found a good supplier for the steel with competitive prices in the area. So I got my first batch of square tubing and angle iron. And the first project I wanted to work on was a welding table. To help me with cutting the steel, I bought an Evolution miter saw. It's not the best tool in the world, it's not the most precise tool, but for me, I didn't have a tool capable of doing repeated cuts like that, and it's really nice. I'm happy with it. So the construction of the welding table is pretty simple. It's a slat, a ladder kind of style. I didn't want to use too much material, and I also didn't want to make it too heavy. I also bought some trestles to help me have a temporary area, and I worked in the back cellar to contain the dust. I started trying to lay out the welding table and having it level, so I used the string method, which worked quite well. And I started tacking all of the slats in place with some jigs I made to get a consistent spacing between them. After that, the structure was a little bit bent in the direction where I put the welding heat. So I flipped the table over and I put some tacks and blobs of welds in the other side. I tried to get the same heat input, and it worked. The bow vanished and I have now a flattish welding table. Let's say it's flat enough for what I need it for. I painted it with 2 heavy coats of metal paints, and I ground with a flap disc the high points of the welding side. And I had my welding table. I added some 3D printed caps. Okay. So once I had my welding table, I could work on the next project, which was the stairs in the middle of the cellar. I started from a 3D model and I began working on the steps. The steps will be made with 2 layers of OSB, glued and screwed together. Yeah, it should be strong enough, and I think it will be the method I'll use for my workbench's tops. The trick with the OSB is to hide the edges. They look messy, they are easily dinged. So I'm using the angle iron to get a nose of those steps. I had to make a shoulder or a rabbit to sit the angle iron at the right height. So I did that with my router. I could then install the angle iron and I varnished the steps. Next, I worked on the steel structure of the stairs to help me with the building because there are a lot of angles to it. I printed some real-life size templates which I used to remind me what I needed to cut as a cut list, and I also used them to trace on the square tubes. And I'm really happy with this method. That's something I will definitely reuse and refine. I also printed a template a bit beefier to help me clamp the pieces together, and also that was a really nice thing to have. Yeah, really happy with that process. So in the end, I'm really happy with the two structures. They were quite similar, which is the tricky part in this construction process. I also want to optimize the space in the cellar, so I decided to put some drawers beneath the steps. So I built some railing structure using the angle iron again. And the idea is for the drawer to be able to slide in and out from the railing onto the surface of the steps. So once that was done, I installed the stairs, which was a bit more difficult than I wanted it to be. I didn't really sort out the way I was going to attach the steps onto the steel structure. I drilled directly into the square tubing and tapped some threaded holes for them, and the lineup with the steps was a bit tricky, a bit difficult. I won't use this method in the future. But it went quite well nonetheless. So the next project was the sink cabinet. So I started from the 3D scan I've made of the prototype, which was built from the crappy furniture wood that came with the sink. So that was really nice to have the right dimension from the prototype, but also I could see the constraint with the pipes going in and out of the cabinet. So really happy I did that in 3D. I did not film the construction process, but it went okay. As for the stairs, my welding is not really great at that point, but it's okay. I installed the cabinet after having clear-coated it. So I clear-coat the metal as well as the OSB. And I think I like the look. I will keep it for the rest of the workshop. And next, I worked on a simple rack to store my materials. Pretty simple construction, square cut, square welds. I'm really happy with the way I secured it to the wall. I used some 10mm bolt anchors. I used some tiny bits of angle iron to secure it to the bolts, and I'm really happy with the method. I'm really happy with the strength. It's really sturdy. And as for the stairs, I printed some end caps to hide the square tube's ends, and I'm really happy also with that. It really finishes the piece. So of course I bought a cupboard as well. I had planned for the size of the cupboard, so it's turning out quite well. I'm really happy with the look. That's what I was going for. For this, I made it really high, which will be a pain to get things in and out. But it's out of the way. This wall is pretty dry. I don't have any things growing on the stone, so it's a good place for this. And as you can see, I have mapped out a workbench here, so I need to traverse here, so I don't want to have something bothering me. The only thing I think I messed up is I should have put the steel rack in the bottom and the OSB rack at the top. But it kind of made sense to have the heavier thing at the bottom, and so I don't know. I'll see with use how it fares and if I need to change anything. I have space for other racks here, so it should grow. This wall is a bit more iffy in terms of stuff growing on it, so we have an example here. And it's way less straight, so we'll see how I use it. Yeah, happy with that. So this is removable. I have 2 screws here and I can remove this shelf and panel, which is there for having a shelf and also hiding the pump. I 3D printed some leveling fits, which are working well, so I'll use them for the rest of the cellar also. And yeah, so let's look at the drawers. So pretty simple construction, butt joints for the OSB, screws and glue. And on the bottom, I made a rabbit. And on the bottom, I made a rabbit to sit the MDF. So this is 6mm MDF. I'll try to keep it as in my material library. So I have always the same things. And for the sliding action, I made some little foot. I wanted to buy some Teflon pads, but it's quite expensive, so we'll see how this works. Also coated with some varnish. One of the downside is this gap in here, so if I put the drawers too far, I have a big gaps, and so I will have a lot of dust. But yeah, I don't know exactly what I will put in there, but I have quite a bit of space. So for those, I managed to get better welds. I watched a lot of videos to try and remember what I was doing all those years ago. And also I dried my welding rods in the oven, and I think it made a big difference. So this is the end of this video. I hope you liked it. I'm really happy with the progress so far. I'm happy with working in the cellar and starting to build stuff. It's been a while and I'm enjoying it. I'm happy with my material choices. I think it will come together in the end and really unify and have a industrial working look to it, and happy with that. I need to refine some of my processes and think more about the way I will attach and make things work in the end. The really last practical steps of building. And I've learned some stuff also by doing those projects. So this is encouraging. In the next videos, I will be working on the workbenches and some tooling, and I'm really looking forward for that, and I hope to see you then.